You know, I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On.
Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. I am your host, J. Alexander Greenwood. You can call me Al. This is episode 21. We are returning to a conversation with author Michelle Stinson Ross, who has just dropped a new iteration of her first novel, Revenge of the Siren Song, a really well-researched pirate backdropped adventure, romance. It's got it all. And we're excited to have Michelle. And if you didn't catch the first part of our conversation with Michelle, just go to your iTunes or your Stitcher or wherever else you listen to this podcast and pick up chapter 20 of Mysterious Goings On, and you can get the first part of this conversation. But we want to keep the ball rolling with Michelle and talk about we've already talked about her process in that episode, but we're going to talk a little bit about Revenge and what happened with this book and the path she took with it. So welcome back, Michelle.
Thank you.
So Revenge of the Siren Song, it came out, was it 2010 or 2011?
2020, late 2010, early 2011. I'm pretty sure I released the print book on Lulu in late 2011 and got my act together for some of the ebooks by early 2011.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about that, briefly what the process was for that and the result, and then maybe, how you felt about that and what led to what is now I'll let the cat out of the bag. You've done a revised edition that has come out now. Maybe you could tell us just a little bit about that journey there.
Okay. Well, I started back to writing. I've always written, and I've always told stories, and I've always made up all kinds of crazy, wonderful things. But as my kids started getting into elementary school and whatever, I found I had time on my hands. What the heck? What was that all about? And I started writing. And at the time, I had several friends. I had mentioned in the last episode that at that time, the family had just relocated from Oklahoma to Florida. So I was still trying to keep in contact with friends and family that I'd known for all my life. And social media came along right about that point in my life. MySpace, of all things.
MySpace.
But I was just researching and learning and enjoying where I was living. And I thought, I think I'll write about some of this stuff. And honestly, I was just writing it for my own entertainment. Mm-hmm. But I was posting it on the blog feature of MySpace at the time. And I got a lot of really great feedback. People were actually like, wow, this is really cool. You're really good at this. You should write more of this. And you should probably sell more of this. I'm like, wow, okay. I hadn't really thought about it. So I started out writing short stories and got a little really good feedback. And then I started playing around with the pirate history and some of the things I was learning about where I was living. And honestly, the first 2 or 3 chapters I posted as individual short stories.
Ah.
And they were so well received that I just kind of kept going. This thing just kind of organically grew out of me monkeying around and entertaining myself, really. But as I kept going, I wrote a full. It's not a full-length novel.
Right.
It's actually, the length is novella length. It's an easy, honestly, guys, if you want to sit down, you could sit down and read from cover to cover in one sitting. It's a really short, easy read. It's 10 chapters. And I did it all myself at first because I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get a publisher to pick this up and whatever. And the whole self-publishing thing was really starting to mature and become a thing at that point. And so I wrote it, I edited it, I created the cover art, I did all of the marketing, completely one-woman show. And I put it out on Amazon and Smashwords, and did a print book via Lulu, and it was kind of cool. I learned a lot through that process about formatting and editing, and I really have a huge appreciation for what it takes to get a work like this to market.
Yeah.
Into the hands of people that want to read it, or at least I hope they want to read it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, part of it was that this was all experimental, and it was more about me and the learning process and just seeing if I could actually do it, rather than worrying about whether it was a commercial success or anything like that. So because it was completely self-published, self-authored, self-edited, which anybody will tell you, don't edit your own work. Well, I didn't have the money or the resources or even the connections to know who to reach out to edit the book. So I'm like, I'll do it myself.
Right.
Sure, why not? So the first edition of the book that I put out in 2010 was just that. It was a completely self-contained, I did it all myself. I learned how to do this stuff from the ground up. And you know what? I'm kind of proud of that.
Yes.
Now, the first edition of the book itself, it's a little wonky to read, but it's not bad. It's not horrible.
No.
It's quite readable, actually.
Yeah.
But as I got more familiar with it, and I really started, what made me start thinking about doing this, truth be told, was that I wanted to do the audiobook.
Right.
But as I revisited a work that I honestly hadn't looked at in probably 4 or 5 years at the time, I saw all of its flaws. I saw all of its warts and wrinkles, and I'm thinking, do I really want to continue pushing it this way, or do I give it a chance to have a better life?
Right.
And also I was in the process of developing some other stories. My vision for this world had expanded, even though I haven't had a chance to go back and write a lot since the release of Revenge of the Siren Song. I've been thinking about this world a lot and where I want to go with it. And I thought, you know what? This is the opportunity. If I want to do an audiobook, let's do it right. Let's edit the book. Let's have it properly formatted, because part of the problem with the original release of Revenge of the Siren Song is it was done so long ago that all of the digital platforms have upgraded, they've changed, and so the book was actually grandfathered in and was no longer actually properly formatted for all of the updates to Kindle and Smashwords and Kobo and Sony and Nook and all of the e-readers that are out there.
Right.
So it needed some touching up just from a technical standpoint.
Right.
But once I started thinking, okay, well, let's get it cleaned up and edited. Let's get it reformatted. Well, if I'm going to do all that, let's go ahead and have a real cover piece done. Oh my gosh. So for any of you that might have gotten your hands on one of the first editions, that's actually a picture of me on the cover as Grace O'Malley.
That's great.
Well, hey, I was the cheapest model I could find.
Oh, but then you, I mean, you, 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 and I'm going to make sure we get a picture of the new cover in the show notes. If I can, you and I talked a little bit about this reiteration, and you would ask me, well, do you have any ideas about editors or about cover artists? And
yeah, you were absolutely my go-to when I finally decided that this is what I wanted to do. I'm like, well, I need to ask somebody that's been there, done that, and I couldn't think of anybody better than J. Alexander Greenwood to say, okay, so I'm ready to take this mess to something a lot more marketable.
Well, listen, first thing I want to say is I absolutely learned all the same lessons with my first book. It's so funny how you and I have such parallels, but I went through all the same things. I wrote a decent first book. I was pleased with it, but when I went back and looked at it, I realized that my first editor kind of let me down on a lot of areas, and I'd let myself down, I think, but I think I was so copy blind after writing and rewriting and reading,
Mm-hmm.
You just can't see your mistakes anymore. So I gave it to a new editor. She cleaned it up, did a really nice job on that. Didn't change the cover. I had a professional artist do the cover, though he and I don't work together anymore. He did the first 3 book covers for my first 3 books. We don't work together anymore, and though he's a talented artist, I've realized since then that a talented artist in general, excuse me, I'm so sorry, a talented artist in general does not always translate into a commercially viable book cover artist, and that was a tough one for me, and that's what led me to Scarlett Rugers on the advice of our mutual friend, author Jason McIntyre.
Thank you, Jason McIntyre.
He rocks. He suggested Scarlett, who is actually down under in Australia, and now she's affordable but not cheap, but she does great work. And so when you sent me, you hooked up with Scarlett, and you sent me a couple of her ideas. I love both of them. I think you picked the one I didn't like as much, but it's funny because I showed it to my wife, and she likes the one you picked eventually. I think you were totally right in the one you picked, but the point was that Scarlett didn't give you a dog in either one of them. They were both really good, and this cover is compelling, and it's sexy, and it's fun. And so, just like the book.
But it's not, well, and here's an interesting thing, because I love working with Scarlett, particularly because they listen to me. One of the things I told them really early on, it's their process is great. So for those of you that are independent authors yourself and you're like, okay, how do I what's the process here? They actually have a phenomenal process. When you contact them and ask them, hey, I want to do a cover, they have you fill out a nice long interview form about what's the book about, what kinds of imagery are you interested in. They highly recommend that you actually create a Pinterest board of cover art and imagery and things that speak to you as far as how you visually want your book represented. It was an absolutely phenomenal process. I highly recommend it. It was so great because for me, I didn't use any of the revisions. So when you contract them to do your cover art, they include several revisions in the pricing. I want to say it was like up to 3 revisions. I never had to ask them to revise a thing. They were so spot on because they had done a really great job of finding out what I wanted to begin with. And one of the things I was very clear and very adamant about was that I didn't want the typical objectified female pirate stuff that you see absolutely everywhere. This is not a romance book. I didn't want boobs or butt going on.
I was a little disappointed there was not like a bodice practically bursting with mammaries. I mean, that's all over the place. You nailed it. That's what you get: boobs and butts, or you get the guy, the male,
the rippling abs of the guy. No, that's not what this book about.
They didn't even have Nautilus machines back in the day. I don't know how these guys had such incredible abs, but anyway, I digress. So the cover is really great, and the editor did a fine job on helping you kind of, according to him and according to you, did a fine job on helping you kind of tighten up some stuff here and there. Is that about right?
Yes, yes. The editor was phenomenal. The flow of the writing was just that much better. Some wonky spots I had with like the ending of the book.
Yeah.
He really tightened up and made me feel a lot better about the way the book ends. So, haha, for those of you that have a first edition, you have a semi-alternate ending, too, to the book.
Oh, my gosh.
Because we got that all straightened out, and it feels a lot better.
Well, because I had told you that way back when. I said, Michelle, I think the only thing, the ending seemed abrupt to me. And I was like, really grooving on this story, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad. I gave it a good review, but I was just like, oh, and so I'm really excited to
well,
check
you know
this
what?
out.
That may be me, and I was enjoying so much living with these characters that I found it hard to find a place to come to an end, and that's really the big reason why there is a series in the works, because I really had a difficult time finding a place to end. And yet I knew that this story needed to end, that Grace needed to move on, to grow, to have her opportunities to change and become more of what I envision her to be. And there were some things that she needed to let go through the course of that tale. And letting go was hard. Letting go was really hard, and it was reflected in that original ending of the book. It's like, but it was so very much what her life came to be in that moment too.
Right. Oh well, I'm looking forward to getting my new edition of this and checking all this out. But well, and so you like me, you've got these. I've got a few copies left of my first edition. I'm going to keep one or two just for fun, but I've given away a few, and there are a few John Pilot Mystery Series completists who wanted them. And do you have much of a backlog of printed first editions? And if so, what are you doing with them?
So I had about 30 to 35 copies of the paperback from the first edition, and doggone, my marketing illness, maybe my marketing addiction just will not let me go. And as I was going through the process of all this stuff, I'm like, I don't want to keep these lying around. They're doing me absolutely no good in a box in the bottom of the closet. Right. So I thought, what can I do with these? And I was revamping and reviving my Goodreads presence when I realized, oh, I could do a book giveaway. I've got 30 copies of this book. Let's give them away. So I set up a contest that ran for the month of July. So it just ended a few weeks ago. And I gave away 30 copies of the first edition. I am now in the process of signing and addressing all of them and sending them on their merry way to those 30 lucky, wonderful people. Thank you so much, guys. Please review the book on Goodreads once you get it.
And are you at all concerned, about having? I mean, I'm not embarrassed of I'm embarrassed about a few things that are in that first edition of mine that slipped through the cracks, but not so that I'm mortified and I wouldn't share it with people. But did it give you any pause? Not that I'm not saying there was anything in yours that should mortify you either, but just did it give you pause thinking, oh, I just want to bury this. I just want to just drop this into Davy Jones' locker. I do not want anybody to see this first edition. Apparently that never crossed your mind, or did it?
No, that really didn't cross my mind. Like I said, I was really happy with the work that I did on that book. I just knew that I could make it that much better. But as you said, you read the first edition. You read it the way I originally released it. And it's a very fun read. It's a very easy read. Yes. And although there were things about it that were bothering me as the writer, probably, the average person that picks it up and doesn't have all of the background that I have in the history and the places and the geography probably wouldn't bother them nearly so much.
Right. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. And you got a great cover, great editor, great story. What's next? What's next?
Well, like I said, I am finishing up the audiobook version of Revenge of the Siren Song. I should have that ready to go in hopefully another week or two. We had a couple of technological glitches, and just when we thought we had it all done, my husband and audio engineer said, "Hey, is this actually the end of the book?" And he played it. I'm like, "No, that's like halfway through chapter 10. What the heck?" He goes, "Well, there's this long space of just nothing on the recording." I'm like, "Oh." So I actually have to go back into the studio and record the final half of chapter 10. And once that's done, we'll finish the editing. We're going to add a little bit of original music to the intro and the close of the audiobook. I have everything set up. If we do this right, so this is our learning process for this version of the book, where I learned a lot about the self-publishing process of the print book. This time we're learning about the self-publishing process of the audiobook. And if everything goes correctly, this audiobook should be whisper synced to the Kindle version of the book so that you can actually switch back and forth between reading the Kindle book and listening to the audiobook.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. That is great. Oh, I envy you.
Is that not awesome?
That is awesome.
That's all done thanks to the ACX, the audio exchange that Amazon owns, and this is the way self-published people get their audiobook into Audible, and like I said, whisper synced to your Kindle book.
Right.
They do all of that tech. Basically, we just have to follow the directions. So we're learning to follow directions again.
I've got a couple of books in ACX, my first mystery novel, and then a book I did, a nonfiction book on crowdfunding, and but they both sold okay and all that. But I used other narrators, and I've always wanted to do my own books, and I've been doing readings for my podcast sections of it. But you actually have, what's really great about you is you've got, your husband is a sound expert and also a musician, so you have all these wonderful little tools, these wonderful big tools at your disposal. This is really great. So oh my gosh, you will let me know, of course, exactly when that audiobook's available, because I'm getting it, and I want everybody listening to listen into that, and maybe, just maybe, if we're nice enough, Michelle might send us an excerpt chapter she's read to play on the show sometime.
I'm sure I could manage to do that. Actually, that's part of how I'm revamping and revitalizing. So you really inspired me with Mysterious Goings On. I'm like, I want to do a podcast to support what I'm doing. This is really cool. So I have recorded several episodes. I have an introductory episode. I have an interview now with you. I am going to go through the process of editing those and get them all set up and going. They will have a presence on my website, all that kind of good stuff. But always in the back of my mind was I want to release both the audiobook and my writing process as serial fiction. Mm-hmm. And so what I intend to do on a fairly regular basis is release a chapter of the audiobook on my podcast.
Ah, yes, I like it.
So that not only are you getting behind the scenes information on the research and the places and the people and the wonderful things that inspire me as far as writing, and a whole lot of thought on how I market my creative work,
right.
But also get to hear pieces of the audiobook, and in order to hold myself accountable to the writing in the rest of the series, I do want to release those a chapter at a time, much the way Sir Arthur Conan Doyle did Sherlock Holmes stories in the Strand. So, Michelle Stinson Ross.com might not be the Strand, but it's a good enough place for me to serialize my work.
No, it's a great idea. It's great marketing, and it speaks to your experience as a professional marketer too. Is that you're covering all the bases. I mean, that's what we're both aspiring to do, is to make ourselves available on so many platforms that we can reach. There's what it is, that there'll be no excuse for people interested in our work to not be able to find us or find out more information. That's the caveat, though. It's people interested in our work. If you're not, you're not. But if you like what we do, that's why I like to provide the podcast. In fact, I have a fan he's probably John Pilot, my lead character's top 3 fans. He and I are talking on Twitter, and I'm just like, heck with it. Why don't you come on the show and let's talk? We're not going to just talk about John Pilot. We're going to talk about Star Trek, and we're going to talk about reading and all his favorite authors. So,
I love it.
Isn't that fun, though, just to talk to what I like to call as a super fan, and just, that's the whole thing. That fires me up. Like, I'm in the middle right now of writing another John Pilot book, and it's not easy. I'm kind of knocking the rust off of my saber, as you might say, and it's been slow. But then I get a tweet from this fan who's like, well, where is it? Let's go. I'm excited. That really helps. So I'm glad. That's a long way of saying I'm glad that you're doing all these wonderful things, and I'm excited as you move forward and making your series. I think there's some really good things ahead for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and feedback from the community is absolutely what keeps me going. It's what got me started writing Revenge of the Siren Song in the first place. And there are actually characters in that book that came about because I had somebody reading the chapters and basically commented, man, I'd love it to have a character that was kind of based on me in a book. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So one of the characters is actually based on somebody that was supporting me at the time that I was writing it. So, I'm not sure whether I'll tell you which one it is or not. Y'all need to read the book and then ask me who it was.
Really? Is this? Are you serious?
Well, yeah, if it takes that to get you guys to read the book, then yeah, go read the book and see if you can figure out who the character is that's based on a fan.
That is really a cool thing. Well, it's funny because I did the same thing. There's a recurring character in one of my books that has some attributes, at least, of people I know. So it's fun to do. And I'm
laughing because I know the backstory of a few of those.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. we'll leave that there. I love that laugh, like that mirthless laugh. Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess we're gonna have to leave him laughing because, my gosh, the clock on the wall. We could go on and on. Michelle, this has been so exciting. I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited about Revenge. And can you, just to wrap it all up here, could you just remind everybody where they can find you and make sure that they can be notified when the next big thing comes along from you?
All right. So I and the books are on Amazon.com, Goodreads. I have my own website. Basically, if nothing else, you can just Google Michelle Stinson Ross, Stinson, and you will find my digital footprint all over the world. But absolutely, for sure, really easy. Go look up Revenge of the Siren Song on Amazon.com, and you will find all of the versions of the book, including very shortly the audiobook, at a digital device near you.
That's so funny. Yeah. Well, that's excellent, Michelle. That's excellent. This has been so great speaking with you these past couple episodes here on Mysterious Goings On. Going to hold you to it. I'm gonna want to steal a chapter from you from your audiobook if you get a chance, and have you back on for a little bit. But until then, it's just been a delight, and I look forward to speaking to you offline and learning more and getting a new review out for Revenge. Although I want to just leave you with the back cover blurb of Revenge of the Siren Song. Some really, really great, wonderful friendly writer wrote, and here it is, and it's all true. If you think Captain Jack Sparrow had all the pirate fun left in the world, then you need to read Revenge of the Siren Song. Engaging action and battle scenes, saucy, sexy fun below decks, and a weather eye towards historical detail earn this novella a tip of the captain's hat. Great read for the romance and pirate enthusiast. Set sail with the Siren Song today, matey. And yes, that's me. I wrote that blurb. I was honored Michelle wanted to add that blurb to the back cover, and I am so looking forward to seeing and learning more from Michelle Stinson-Ross. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to be had, isn't it? All right. Until our next chapter, again, you can find out more about my stuff at pilotscross.com. I'm on the Facebook at John Pilot Mysteries, and I'm on Twitter at @A_Greenwood. So, until our next chapter, this has been Mysterious Goings On, and until then, keep reading.
A little flexibility can go a long way. By refinancing your new or used auto loan with PenFed, you can lower your monthly payments for more flexibility in your budget. You can even schedule your first payment for up to 60 days from the date of your refinance. Calculate how much you could save at penfed.org/auto-refi or call 1-800-247-5626 to apply. Membership is open to everyone. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA. It's a great time to get a great deal on a new car when you get approved for an auto loan from PenFed. Our Powered by True Car rates are as low as 1.39% APR on new vehicles. Finance for a longer term to lower your monthly bill. Plus, take up to 60 days to schedule your first payment. Join PenFed and together we'll keep you moving forward. Anyone can apply. Visit penfed.org/auto or call 1-800-247-5626. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.